We're back. We's married.
You see, we can sit a little closer now. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Give me. Crazy man. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the channel.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Welcome back to the channel. Excuse me. I'll put this on because it looks kind of.
See what I gotta do with it?
It's kind of a little dry. First of all, there's been an influx of new subscribers on here, so thank y'all for that. Hold on, y'all can't really see my puff. I'm gonna just.
Oh my
We're
goodness.
gonna hold just a little bit. I ain't gonna hold y'all. Y'all gotta see this. I work hard for this. Yeah, I like that. All right. So.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm good now. First of all of y'all who are new here, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if all y'all came from TikTok, wherever you came from, however you found us.
We're happy to have you.
We're
Either
happy
way.
you're here.
Yes.
You're in the right place. As y'all know and can tell by the title, we are recently married. That's right. I like that. We in sync. We won. Yeah, we recently got married on September 24th. If you haven't already, go check out the trailer and the
full wedding recap.
Wedding recap.
Not too long. Pretty
It's like 8
straightforward.
minutes.
Yeah, and we'll kind of describe what it is that just takes care of me so well.
Yeah, it wasn't super long. It was really precious. Love how everything came out. So we're just gonna jump into it about everything regarding the wedding. First things first, we know we just put up shortly before the wedding video. We just put up that we were engaged and we were talking about that, and then voila, we're married.
Oh my God!
Wow! So we're just gonna get this out of the way. We are not pregnant.
Yeah, definitely not.
That's not why we got married. It was a quick turnaround, but we planned it before we actually got engaged.
Yeah, so going back to February, we actually began kind of planning for the wedding. And that was when we concluded our, it was 3 months?
Yeah,
So
we started
six sessions of premarital counseling that we went through. And that was just like a really amazing experience and definitely a blessing that I highly recommend for any Christian couple, like on your way to pursuing marriage. It is very important that you have someone that is more spiritually mature than you, and prayerfully married as well, to be able to walk you through what that covenant actually looks like, because we've definitely learned a whole lot more about each other in our month and some change of marriage. Some things that you can prepare for, and obviously some things that you learn with living with each other. But I think, again, it just goes back to us trusting God's voice, and if He's able to, cater specifically to each and every single one of us. And, we believe in Genesis where, He took the rib from Adam's side, that He knew exactly what Adam needed in a helpmate. And if we are able to trust that God is able to craft someone for us in order to be able to give Himself glory, that there are certain things that, we can forego, such as like living with each other, not having sex prior to marriage, all these different things that have, essentially become normalized in our culture today. We were blessed to be able to go into our covenant without doing those things. And I think we were very happy with being able to commit to a journey of holiness and pursuing that together, and it being something that we both desire, not me dragging her, not her dragging I. So very important to do so. Do we want to share the books real quick that we went through for premarital counseling?
Okay, so for
we got those for y'all.
Counseling, we mentioned them in the other videos, but these were all recommended to us by our pastor. So we have The Sacred Marriage,
which is by Gary Thomas.
We got The 5 Love Languages,
which is by Gary Chapman.
Gary, go ahead, Gary's.
Boundaries in Dating by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. Very good book.
When Sinners Say I Do.
This one is a heavy hitter, by Dave Harvey. Foreword by Paul David Tripp.
Lasting Love,
which is by Alistair Begg. Excellent read. And this is the one.
this momentary marriage, that thing will.
John Piper, you did it. You did something with this one.
That thing will convict you for.
Yes, and all of these books have scripture in them, which is very important to us. Obviously, just making sure that we have a firm understanding of the covenant of marriage, and that we were able to do things with a biblical stance through the whole entirety of our process. courting, what we wanted our wedding to look like, and how we arrived to that particular conclusion. And of course, being able to maintain a position of representing Christ in his church properly. So those were the books that we went through in addition to those 6 weeks that we shared with you all with Pastor Abrams. And God bless him and Miss Charlene. They've been a tremendous couple for us to be able to be in the presence of, just using their lives to service Jesus. So that was our process and how we went from concluding that in February, me proposing to her in June, and then turning around in September, which looks like to everybody else a very quick turnaround, but all of that was literally being planned from February then on.
Yeah, I think when it came down to picking the date, even we depended on God for that. I think it was around one of the end of our sessions, or around the time we just started praying. When we knew the session was about to end, we started praying about when the wedding should be. And Corey ended up having a dream. And wait, how did the dream? He just texted me it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and he's texting me oh, pray about September 24th. I'm like, what?
And I didn't really say anything after that.
Yeah, I'm like, can we explain here, please?
Yeah. It was an obvious topic of conversation.
Yeah.
But it was something that we were going back and forth about, because throughout that entire process, it was kind of okay, we are done counseling. Let's just do it now, because obviously there is that temptation that you have when you propose to somebody that you have arrived at the finish line.
Yeah.
So we want to encourage you all that the finish line is not the proposal. It is entering the covenant of marriage. And that was kind of something that we went through and discussing. Do we do something just us two and our pastor? Do we do something with our family members involved? Do we have something relatively larger? Because we had a conversation again as well as to, do we do something kind of moderate and then later do something big? But then things change, so we didn't want to necessarily have to go through that process again. And I'm glad
we're gonna come back to that, because that's a whole nother portion. But just the date aspect, it was
yeah. So I had this crazy dream. If you're familiar with the fluttering clocks where they do and then they stop on whatever it is that they're supposed to be transcribing. You all know what I mean, because I'm great at sound effects, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
But basically, I remember seeing September 24th, and in my dream, and I'm really particular and always trying to have my hands in things, and that's probably one of my flaws as a man. And you too,
I'm the same way.
Overly curious, always has to know the details.
Wow, what's going on?
and I was trying to change it, because I'm maybe I can, and then went right back to September 24th. So that was how we ended up arriving at our wedding date, which again we did pray about, because it matters at the end of the day. Something that we were entering, which is the covenant of marriage. We have to make sure that we're doing things in God's way and doing God's will. And even the date matters, because of course when it comes to attendance and things of that sort, there's so many different factors that allow people to be able to attend. But that's how we arrived at that date.
Yeah, and this was the end of February, mind you. So September, it seemed a little ways off, but in relation to planning a wedding, you usually plan a year out. So it wasn't that much time. But then I also, when he told me September 24th, I'm to be quiet, I'm why September? I'm not really a huge fan of September, fall. I'm not a fall girl, I'm a summer girl. So ideally, I was thinking oh, summertime, still a little ways off, we could plan. And I remember praying and asking God, Lord, what is it about September 24th? Because we also were getting recommendations to move it up, obviously, as Corey stated, but we also are very, very adamant about doing whatever the Lord wants us to do. I think even our parents have been all right, y'all are real stubborn, this don't make sense, what's going on? But it's whatever the Lord wants, we're gonna do. So I remember asking God, why September 24th? And he knows how to make sense of stuff to you. He knows his children. So for whatever reason, I always go back a year to a year before. I'm okay, what happened? I always do that. So when I looked, September 24th was literally a year to the day I moved down here, or I either moved down here or signed my lease. And I'm just okay, Lord, that's kind of confirmation, because literally a year later, And the thing about that, why I'm saying it's confirmation, is because I remember praying to God before I even met Corey. I'm like, I want to live on my own at least a year before I move in with my future husband or whatever. And the Lord was like, okay, I got you. And I didn't correlate the two, but I was just like, oh. So the Lord, I was asking the Lord, like, why? And he was like, this is your why. You asked me for this. I'm like, you're right. So that mattered. And it was actually the perfect time. I think that was like the last really nice weekend before it started getting colder too, recently. But that's how we came up with September 24th. Yeah, it was a great day. The weather was perfect. There was no rain, no clouds, nothing. That's a little inside joke for those who know the story about the whole proposal video. Is in that, so go watch it. But so that was the date. I don't think I started looking for like dresses and stuff until February, March, April, May. I don't think we really started planning until like April, May.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I knew like I wanted well, first, before even the dress thing, going back to like the size of our wedding and how we wanted to do it. When Corey and I first like were having conversations, even as friends, we were just sharing with each other like how in our families, weddings weren't like a usual thing that either of us have really attended, and like have seen in our family of it being like, okay, a good marriage or people getting married. That's not common. I think I've only been to like less than 5 weddings.
I've been to 2.
Yeah.
Only one in my family.
Yeah. So just in general, when we were talking at that stage, it was just like we were like, okay, I think I would want. We both had an understanding like, okay, I think I would want to have like a decent sized wedding for my family to witness and be a part of. So that conversation came back up, and we were like, okay, we're gonna do that. It would be easier to just elope. And now in hindsight, I'm just like, yo, there's so many things that go on behind the scenes, like little details that you would not think about that are related to like planning a wedding. So in hindsight, I'm like, I would just want to elope and just have a dinner. But it was a really, really beautiful, it was a beautiful wedding. I wouldn't change a thing. Even though I feel like the stress of it could have been way more stressful, but it wasn't. But it meant more to us to have that stress of planning and to glorify God and allow our families to be a part of it in that sense. And it was Christ-centered. So that was another major thing for us.
Yeah, and we can kind of go into the planning process from here, because that was something that I stepped pretty much all the way back from. Like my original request at the beginning, because like we had a conversation and I told her like, listen, there's only like 3 or 4 things that I actually want to take place on the 24th of September. All right, see, she does way too much.
I didn't say anything. I thought it was a little harsh.
Whatever.
Go ahead, say the 3 things.
So my 3 or 4 things were: 1, that Christ is represented through the entirety of that process. 2, that I got a tuxedo from Damari Seville, which I did. I didn't get to show off the inner workings of the tuxedo as much as I wanted to, but I had Genesis chapter 2, verse 22 in there, which that's my rib right here. So I had to put that on the inside of my tuxedo jacket, which I was like super excited about. They're Black owned, and also the co-owner of it is Malcolm Jenkins, who played for the Philadelphia Eagles. So you know I'm super hyped about that. Go Birds! We are 8-0 currently, but that's gonna be a whole nother video. And then also just that she was happy with that process of the wedding, of course, and then lastly that I left with a wife. And her as my wife. Let me be specific. Yeah, be specific. But those are my 4 things that were kind of like non-negotiables for me in a sense, but also now kind of looking back as to arriving to September 24th, I want to advise like young men and men of all age, honestly, this is where your spiritual responsibility really starts to kick in. And I think we found that out going through the conclusion of premarital counseling all the way up to the wedding day itself, where the devil despises Christian marriages between a man and a woman, representing Christ and his church. So let's not forget that. And as a man, it is very important to start building those habitual practices that will take place when you are now required to lead your wife and also eventually your family as well. Studying scriptures, that became something that was frequently practiced between us. Fasting, that was something that we were partaking in prior to getting married. Reading the same books and kind of checking in with each other on reading those particular books. So those were things that we knew we had an individual part to, take in that. But then also as a man, now that you are becoming the covering for your wife, that you have to actively prepare for what that process may look like. And that looks like, praying late at night, praying with her, different things that will have to take place, because the devil hates marriage. And we need you all to, the devil hates marriage, all right? Like the week before the wedding and all of that. But I'm going to let you rock with the planning process, because we're going to get into a little bit more of that too.
Oh, okay. So with the planning process, like I said, we didn't really start planning till I want to say really May. I've been so focused on this channel and just transitioning into being a wife that I've kind of segued from my personal channel, but I'll be sharing more details on my personal channel. I'll link that down below, so y'all can, all my ladies, y'all can follow that. And also on me on social media, I've been sharing more tips and stuff. But wedding dress shopping and stuff, it's okay if you don't find the dress right away. That's not gonna happen, more than likely, and that's okay. Don't settle. Colors and stuff, I was very, very much, I'm a visual person, so I was quick to go to Canva and put out all of the stuff I got from Pinterest, and I'm like, Corey, what you think about this? So our color scheme was basically shades of green, with accents of white and gold, because our last name has green in it. So we just thought that was fitting. So that made things really easy. I did contact wedding planners. Do not, I'm going to emphasize this a lot, do not go into debt for a wedding. We would highly advise not doing that, because this is okay. Everybody can have their own, do what you want, right? It's your money. But to us, it was very important for us not to go into debt, because there was a whole life that we were going to live after this one day. And not that this day wasn't important, and not that you shouldn't have everything that you want, right? But spending thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, even some people do, whole houses.
Listen, if you have it, God bless you.
God bless.
This ain't for y'all.
This is not for y'all. Keep scrolling or whatever. Fast forward from this part. But for us, this was a common.
It was a common understanding.
Yeah, we just weren't going to do
set
that.
the structure and the foundation of our family properly without debt.
Right. We didn't want any debt. So I was very mindful about that when I reached out to wedding planners. I'm like, okay, I didn't know this is what people spend on weddings when they told me. And that was one. And then the other one, she was more than willing to work with me with whatever budget I was saying. But we ended up not having to use outside wedding planner because of our pastor and his wife. And that was just the ultimate blessing. Of course, us being full-time influencers, we were also working that avenue of pitching to different brands regarding wedding related stuff. So we were able to get partnerships with that, which helped us save money. And
Try
Hitched, Birdie Gray for my bridesmaids dresses. I was able to work with Bridal Reflections, which was the place I went to for my wedding dress. Damari Seville. Am I missing anybody?
I think that's
my friend who did our photo booth.
Okay.
Belle's Experience.
Kevin Stevenson. Best photographer in the world.
Best ever.
K3MM Group.
K Visuals, who did our wedding video, which was fire.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were really blessed in that aspect, and it was just the canopy, which is where we got ready at. And let me tell y'all, like, the Lord is going to move at His pace, and we have a clearer understanding of that more and more as time goes on. But it was just like the most. I think especially to other people, it was the most like, it wasn't as structured to them because we were like dependent on God for a lot.
Yeah.
So to them, it's like to a lot of people, it was just like, okay, do y'all have X, Y, and Z planned out? And we're looking at them like, no, not yet. And they're just like, okay, but your wedding is coming up. And we're like, we know. And we're like very calm about it, but it's like, well, we're trusting in the Lord to provide. Like,
yeah, and that's something too, we gotta mention this, like, if you are like individuals that have like that I'm really going to stand on the promises of God type faith, when you come together, God's gonna be like, all right, let me see how much more you actually trust in me. So like, we have our own individual faith stories, which is kind of like how we connected in the very beginning, but experiencing that together as a couple is kind of like, you start want to lean on your flesh, and you want to start, going on your own understanding.
You have to remind each other,
It's like, we were going back and forth. Sometimes it was me, sometimes it was her, and it's kind of like, well, what did God say?
Yeah. What did God say? So that was that. And also with like partnerships too in our line of work, contracts can take forever. So that's another thing. It's not always a quick turnaround. So with us just being like, knowledgeable about that, it was more peace than anything. But then also when things were coming through, it was like, all right, we gotta make it happen. Oh, even our honeymoon. Oh yeah.
Y'all gonna love that video.
Yeah, that vlog will be coming soon. But yeah, so it was like, it felt longer than it actually was. But if you really think about it, we got married within, what is that?
We counted 4 months.
4 months from when we got engaged. So we started planning right before then to say. So that was a really, really quick turnaround, and it was a blessing looking back on it, because there were so many different things that needed to be figured out, needed to be done, and the Lord just provided at the end of the day. So really grateful about that. We ended up having over 150 people. It felt like it was more than that. I think people brought people too, so I want to say a good 200.
No comment.
There was more people on my end.
We saw you on there.
But yeah, I'm also the bride.
Whatever the Lord wanted to do that day, I think, that kind of took promise. And then of course, as the couple being married, we were focused on each other, trying to eat a little bit, take pictures, etc. So
it was like, and then y'all, like, your wedding will go by so quickly. Like, so many women from our church told me that, they're like, it's gonna go by so fast. And then it really did go by so fast. It's like I feel like we both were present. I was emotional the whole day. I was crying the whole day. So it was crazy. But we both were emotional, and I know we were like present. And it's so easy to get caught up in like everything that's going on. But I think we did a good job in like focusing and like taking it all in. It was a little hectic because obviously you're the bride you're the bride. You're the couple that everybody came to see. So they're like flooding you, trying to get pictures because they're excited. So it's like, you're not gonna, oh no, I don't want to take no, it's your wedding, so you're going to take photos. So I think that was like the major thing that we wish we probably could have like adjusted to better, like getting around the room. But in relation to like how we decided to do the wedding and like why it was so important for us to like have it be Christ-centered, I think we should elaborate on that. So basically, when you think of a wedding, right, you think of the ceremony. It can usually be in a church. A lot of weddings sometimes aren't now, but normally, traditionally, that's what you think of, a church, right? The wedding ceremony, vows are taken, are shared, pastor's there, then everybody goes to the reception. Everybody's turning up. I ain't gonna hold y'all. This was my thoughts about weddings as well, because this is what we see. So I would be lying if I didn't like say I was like wrestling with God about that, because I'm like, Lord, this is what I know, and He had to really refine me. Like, okay, but this is what I want you to do, and it's about me. So you'll be alright. So it was a really, really, really stretching process, but I wouldn't have changed it, because the response that we got from, it wasn't even like a lot of people, but
just enough
to know that it was
God.
effective. Yeah. So it was like, I wouldn't have changed it. So basically, our wedding was in our church, the both reception and the ceremony, and there wasn't any dancing. There wasn't any of that.
We had our first dance with.
We had our first dance.
That was it.
And we had like
apple cider, bubbling.
We had sparkling apple cider. We cut cake. We did all the like other wedding stuff, wedding things, but there was no like dancing. There weren't any like secular songs being played. Nothing. It was all Christian music. I'm okay with that, because the way that we basically came to that understanding was, a lot of people that we know that were invited to this wedding aren't saved.
Yeah.
So
and you got your church goers too. We can't leave that out.
Yeah.
There are people that are in your church that probably aren't saved either. So those two groups were kind of like our primary motivation for that.
Yeah. And it was just like, if this is the only experience that they ever get to have with God, which is witnessing two people, come together as one in the most
haven't touched each other,
right?
Haven't lived with each other.
It would look crazy for us to go from that ceremony where the word is being shared, knowing that our experience and the process that it took to get us here, and then to turn around and twerking and all, people aren't gonna remember the ceremony. Mm-hmm. So when you break it down like that, it's like, if you understand, you understand. You understand because you understand.
Yeah.
Some you might not understand because you don't understand.
Yeah, and scripturally, I think one of the things that really made it come alive to us was studying 1 John together. Because anytime that we begin studying a new book in the Bible, I always pray about it. Okay, Lord, our season, our circumstances, what it is that we've been praying about and laying before you every day. What do we need to hear from you in this season? And 1 John was, I think, the book that really opened our eyes and really focusing on walking as Jesus walked. In 1 John chapter 2, I believe it's verse 6, talks about how as Christians we ought to walk as he walked. And that is not a partial walk. This is being a bondservant of Christ, as Paul continues to talk about through the New Testament. In Philippians especially, and even in Philippians chapter 2, where he talks about Christ, taking on the form, of man and being in human flesh, and how, he, essentially lowered himself in order to be able to sacrifice himself for us, and giving us the opportunity to be able to experience eternal life with him if we accept him as our Lord and Savior, and begin to live for him and really be obedient in that process. And that was something that, as we continue to work through 1 John, we were kind of okay, this is the way that the Lord is leading us to do. And of course we had, the chirping in our ear about, not doing things in a traditional manner, or, not having any fun or not turning up. When it comes to understanding the value of people being saved, that was something that was a non-negotiable for us. And we had to stand firm on that and be able to trust that, God was leading us in that process, and that he would be sufficient enough to be able to make our wedding be exactly what it was. And we were very gracious for that. And I think it's just very important that as young Christian couples, especially, being that both of our families do not necessarily have a whole lot of marriages and a variety of different situations and circumstances, that we don't prioritize immediate gratification for eternal satisfaction, because there is something.
Wait, hold on. We gotta let that marinate.
Yes, and I'll probably forget what I said anyway, but basically, To elaborate on that a little bit, it's kind of like we place our feelings in front of our faith, and we know that the word says that the just live by faith. So in situations where you are having a large gathering, where people are coming together for two people, which is really for us one person, because we become one flesh, but we're both desiring to give our lives to Christ and to obey Christ throughout that entire process, that there are people that are coming to your wedding that haven't been to church in years, go to church and just go to church because it's a routine that they practice, are mad or angry or frustrated at God, which more often than not has to do with somebody being disobedient to God, and we hold God, of course, to the standard of the individual that has done wrong by us. And those individuals that are saved, and also individuals that are seeking to be married, that need to lay their eyes on what that covenant actually looks like and being able to be around that process. And when you understand the magnitude of that opportunity, it's best that you take advantage of that.
Yeah.
This is not like a super spiritual message. This is not trying to be like holier than thou or anything of that sort. But again, when you understand the value of salvation, the grace of Jesus Christ, the love that he has for us, a wedding ceremony and a reception is the best place to showcase that, because you don't know when you are going to get another opportunity to be able to share the gospel. And also, if you start the foundation of your marriage on the basis of compromise, the value of your testimony to other people that have attended to your wedding is going to be like, oh, but I thought y'all were Christians. And that is hard to shake sometimes, so we want to make sure that we continue to do that. But that was very important to us at our wedding. And I think my cousin Craig, when Pastor Abram shared about building a house on sand, and him coming up to us and saying, like, for my side of the family, none of us built our house on the rock. I'm very proud of you all to see you building on the rock and not building your house on sand. And that, like, hearing that comment from my cousin was just really a beautiful thing. And it was almost if like God softly spoke as my cousin was sharing his words with us, like, well done, my good and faithful servants. And that's a rewarding feeling to begin your marriage off with, to be able to know that the gospel went forth. It was unblemished, it was untainted. There was nothing that was going to take away the glorification of Jesus Christ from that day. And we were like really excited about that process. And we couldn't have done it without all the resources that we've shared with you this far. Obviously having an amazing church family, so many different couples surrounding us, praying for us, pouring into us, sharing wise counsel with us, our pastor and his wife, the young couples in the church, Mark, India, Nate, Erica, Tommy, Karina, Jashawn, Maria, Kelly, Patrick, Mackenzie, and Lauren. Like, all of you have like been very influential in our walk as young couples, to be able to be encouraged by people who are seeking to do things God's way and being able to be committed to that process.
And I think one of the things that's important to highlight too is, first of all, the whole, like, I don't want to say acting as one, but becoming one, it starts before you actually get married. And what I mean by that is as a unit in your decision making. Because people in your life, like family, friends, whatever, whoever it is, they're used to you being a single person or being on your own or making decisions that you can answer for. So when there's somebody else that's going to be your husband or your wife, I think it's important that you tell people, like, this is what we have decided, and just start placing that at the forefront, because it's not just about you. It's not just about them. There are going to be 1,000,001 people sharing their opinions about what you should and shouldn't do, and how things should be done, and all these things. And you just have to continuously reiterate, not in a nasty way or anything, but just reiterate, this is what me and so-and-so are doing. This is how we decided to go about things. Oh, thanks for your input, but we decided to do stuff this way. It's always we, because there wasn't any decisions that we made for our wedding that we both didn't speak on or that we both didn't agree to. It wasn't like, oh, Corey, we're doing this and that's that, and I don't want to hear nothing about it. And it wasn't any, oh, Kiana, this is what we're doing, that's it. Like, it was always a mutual understanding. And we listen to each other, and that's really important too. So I just want to reiterate that, because I think that process starts before marriage. Like, there's a lot of things that I think we started putting into practice well before we started getting married. So, and it's also about giving people grace too, because it's new for everybody. You and your spouse to be aren't going to be the only ones going through this transition. It's your family, it's your friends, it's everybody that's connected to you that have to get adjusted to, like, the fact that you're not just you anymore, that you're being shared with somebody else, and it's a lot.
Roles change.
Yeah. So I think even like with people knowing that they won't probably have as much access to you or things of that sort, it's just like it's not comfortable. So it's just, again, having grace, understanding stuff, not allowing things to, tick you off in a way where it takes you out of character or whatever the situation is. It's just understanding that, like, okay, this is probably what's going on, and it's a lot going on. So let's process this the right way. But yeah, it's important to just establish that foundation of y'all being a united force from jump, because if not, it can lead to like boundaries getting crossed and just arguments and all this unnecessary stuff. But I think we handled that stuff well when it came to all that regarding wedding things.
Yeah, we just knew the value of our testimony, really.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to staying in your word and praying together and understanding that the closer and closer you get to entering the covenant, the adversary is going to come from any angle that he possibly can in order to be able to, diminish the foundation that you're trying to build on, essentially. And I think also something that we can offer to like family members or friends or anybody preparing for marriage is like, give patience towards the young couple that's trying, or couple period, it doesn't have to be young couple, but give patience towards the couple, because we're also trying to navigate and sift through the different feelings and the emotions and the transitions and the responsibilities of, like a husband becoming a covering for his wife, a wife, transitioning into having her soul relationship be God first and her husband second. These are things that sometimes I don't want to say we necessarily felt it harshly, but throughout that period, it's kind of like, dang, nobody knows I got all this going on, and people are asking me to do this and do that. And like naturally, we're servants, we're giving people, like if we could give the clothes off our back to the next person, that is something that neither of us would hesitate to do. But in that process, kind of really honing in and focusing on what God is developing through that couple, and as two become one flesh, and as the man leaves and cleaves to his wife, that these are real experiences. When you look at Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2 and you kind of experience, you're like, okay, now I understand, Lord, like what you mean and the value of your word, and how much insight and wisdom it gives us to actually navigate through this transition of becoming one flesh. So yeah, like stay encouraged, like everybody. This is not just for people getting married, but also family, friends, colleagues, etc. There's a lot of change that takes place, and this is the beautiful opportunity that Christ allows us to really understand the grace that he gives to us. Because when you want to snap on your cousin, or you want to snap on your brother or whatever, or you want to break down or whatever the case may be, we often think of how often we let down Jesus Christ. And does he condemn us? No. We become convicted, and that conviction draws us closer to him so that we can portray more of who he is and less of who we are. And that's the value of, again, looking up and focusing on those vertical practices and establishing that relationship with Jesus Christ, and knowing that once this goes well, everything this way is smooth and is butter, and you begin to understand. And especially growing and becoming more mature Christians, sometimes spiritual maturity is a tad bit different than our earthly age, to put it like in simplistic terms, is that where God places us in reverse position sometimes, and it's kind of like, I'm the youngest one here, and everybody, it be like that sometimes. And be encouraged by that, because that was something that we had to experience and go through, and it was beautiful for the both of us, because when the Lord sets you apart, it's for a good reason. He always prepares you for whatever it is that you are going to go through. And when he brings you through that, you understand that you can only arrive at that particular point by the grace of God. So,
yeah. I want to reiterate and piggyback on what you just said. For like the married couple, just family members, friends, just give them grace. Like, especially the bride, because usually the bride has more on her plate when it comes to planning stuff. It's so many details. Your mind is all over the place. You're also like trying to, make sure everybody's happy at the same time of making sure you're happy and it's your day. It takes a lot. So if the couple is missing the mark and you're in your eyes, just continue to give them grace, a lot of grace, a lot of patience. If this is the first time they're getting married, because they've literally never done this before. They've never planned a wedding. They don't know, right from wrong, in certain aspects. So it's a lot to take in, and they're going to miss the mark. So just have patience, and ultimately it is their wedding. So whatever it is they decide to do at the end of the day, you just have to respect it and support. I think the biggest thing that is needed in that aspect is just support. Like, knowing that you have support from people that you're close with or you can depend on, or whoever it is, it just means the world, because it's like, dang, like, they understand. Like, I know I forgot about this, or I could have communicated better with that, but they're not holding that against me because they understand. Like, that means the world. Showing up, being present, supporting, it just, that room was like filled with love. And that was another reason why I was emotional, because it's just like, even though there was like a lot of stuff going on where it could have drove you crazy, it was just like, I can still feel love in this room, and people just like genuinely just being happy and celebrating us. Like, it meant the world, because it was just like that support was very present. So just a heads up.
Yeah, and again, that's all just going back to being prayerful about the whole entire process, from top to bottom, being diligent in that, consistent prayer, studying the word, being around Christian couples, again, premarital counseling, reading the books that we mentioned. We'll also make sure that we link that as well. We also have a really great one for couples that just got married. This is called
What Did You Expect, by Paul David Tripp.
Yes, this was excellent. Coming off the high of the honeymoon, because we'll get into a whole nother video
right away. You hear me?
Our first month with each other, but again, that's like a process, and it takes time. And I'm glad that like I have you to be able to go. That I have you to go with that through, because it really means a lot, like, for you to put in that work and effort as an individual without us having to, again, like, force each other to be able to spend intimate time with God, because we know that this won't work if we do it any other way, which we've tried. It won't work. So being able to meet you in November 2020, right? Yeah, that's when I took that. We took that influencer class, and to truly desire to live a holy life together, and to watch you grow up and mature as a woman, and walk into the fullness of your call, and continuing to grow like by the day. Like, it means a lot to me to be able to be your husband. So I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for y'all.
I'm grateful for you.
That's my baby right here.
That's why I married him.
Yeah, but it all comes together. When you follow God's instructions, there's never been a time where God has called us to do anything by faith to hold on to his promises, that he will not fulfill his word. It will not return void. Everything that God speaks, it comes to pass, and we are a living testimony of that, and hope to continue to be that, and just sharing our life and our journey together as a young Christian couple that is not trying to figure it out because we have God's word. We're just trying to obey it, and letting that be the roadmap for our lives, our family. And as for me and my household, we going what?
We gonna serve the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we're gonna reiterate this in every video. We are not perfect by any means. We do not want to be idolized as the perfect couple. Our thought process behind sharing, our testimony and our experiences with y'all is for y'all to be encouraged to do things God's way as well, and being obedient in that way as well, because it transformed your life and it means a lot, and you can't lose when you do it God's way. So we hope that we'll continue to encourage you guys and y'all find value in all the content that we put out. Again, thank y'all so much for showing up time and time again, going crazy. We at over 600 subscribers already.
630, I believe.
Yeah.
Today.
And we launched in June. July.
And the goal is 1,000. So
share.
Please share. Please encourage people to subscribe. And also, we want this to be an intimate process as well. So if you have any questions, whether you leave them in the comments on YouTube, whether you DM us, email us, whatever the case may be, we want to be accessible, of course, with boundaries. But we want to be able to share everything that we're learning. And as we continue to grow as a couple, we want to make sure that you have access to the knowledge that we've been blessed to be able to be around, that we have been able to gain through the insight of God's word, whether it's sharing scriptures, sermons, books, etc. Please ask. Let this not be an opportunity in which you hear just what we're saying, but we also want to make sure that if there's any way that we can be of service to you all, that we are doing so, because that is our goal, as representatives of Christ, to be able to strengthen and edify the body. So please, I'm begging people, because I know, especially you guys, I'm talking to you fellas, I know how hard it is to ask questions to another man, or to ask about the proposal process, or making flowers, or leading your wife, or working through the scriptures and different things of that sort. We have resources for all of that, commentaries, books. Please ask questions, men and women, and of course we will be able to do our best in servicing you in that process.
Absolutely. And we've already done so with people who have reached out, so it's not foreign. No question is stupid. No matter where you are in your journey, it's necessary, and we're here. So we hope y'all enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
We married, y'all.
Thanks so much for watching. We is married. I was married now.